Hi, I'm Julia, and this is how my family reunion turned into something they'll never forget. It had been years since I stepped foot into my parents' backyard. Same plastic chairs, same overcooked burgers, same carefully crafted smiles that always felt like warnings. Nothing had changed, except me. I stood there in a neutral dress, blending in on purpose. No labels, no designer heels. I even brought a basic rental car, not the one with the company logo etched on the door. I didn't come here to show off, but I also didn't come to shrink. And still, they made sure I remembered my place. Still trying to make that website thing work? My uncle asked, already half laughing. You mean my company? I said, calm. He blinked. Oh, you run it? I smiled. Every day. My sister Lauren rolled her eyes. It's freelance, not like real business. I could have corrected her. I didn't. Then came the toast. Dad stood at the center of the yard, sun reflecting off his sunglasses. He raised his beer like it was a trophy. To family, he began. To the kids who made us proud, and the ones who tried. Everyone laughed, not a chuckle. A full-body, table-slapping kind of laugh. I didn't. I stood still. And then, my phone rang. I answered without thinking. You're on speaker, I said. Julia! My assistant's voice rang out. Just letting you know, the Forbes feature is live. And Amazon confirmed. Acquisition deals going public in 30 minutes. The laughter stopped. Completely. Lauren's face twitched. Wait. What are you talking about? Dad frowned. What acquisition? I looked around, calm as ever. The one I was too unstable to pull off, apparently. No one said a word. And I didn't need them to. Because that silence, that was mine. And it was louder than any applause they ever withheld. The moment I walked back into that house, my childhood house, I knew exactly where the photo used to hang. It was the hallway wall between the living room and the kitchen, where sunlight would catch the edge of every frame. For years, it displayed the only full family portrait we ever took. It was the one where I wore that awful purple dress Mom made me wear because it brought out my better angles. I hated that dress. But I stood still, I smiled, I showed up. I always did. And now, gone. The wall was perfectly rearranged. My sister's wedding photo took center. On the left, a sepia-toned picture of my parents in Aspen. On the right, a graduation photo of Lauren's oldest, looking slightly smug in his tiny gown. But no trace of me, not even in the background. I ran my fingers along the outline where the sun had bleached the paint. I didn't cry. I didn't need to, because that kind of omission doesn't sting like a slap. It stings like truth finally sitting down at the table. Looking for something? It was Lauren. She had that voice she used when she wanted me to know she noticed me, but didn't think I deserved her full attention. I turned. No, I said, just remembering. Oh, she replied, stepping past me. We updated some things. That old picture didn't really match the new aesthetic. She didn't even flinch. It wasn't malicious. It was worse. It was indifferent. I followed her into the kitchen, where Mom was rearranging deviled eggs on a tray like it was the most important task in the universe. She didn't look up. Need help? I asked. She finally looked at me. No, everything's under control. She placed the parsley garnish and smiled like I was a guest in my own past. I watched her for a second. Her wrists thinner now, her hair more silver than I remembered. But her voice, her tone, still the same. That's when the memory hit me. The last night I slept under that roof, I was standing in the same kitchen. The counters hadn't changed. Neither had the cabinet door that stuck. It was the night before I was supposed to leave for college. I had a scholarship, a full ride, and I came home to find my college fund. What little was saved. Gone. I had opened the envelope that used to sit in the important drawer. Empty. Just a note. Sorry, we had to help Lauren. She needed a deposit for the house. Back then, I hadn't even yelled. I just stared at Mom, blinking. You said that money was mine. Her answer? Sweetheart, it's just money. You got a scholarship. You'll be fine. Lauren's in a tougher spot. I should have said something, but I didn't. I packed my bag the next morning, ate dry toast, didn't even say goodbye to Dad. He was already out on the porch, helping Lauren move furniture. Now, years later, in the same kitchen, she was still center stage, and I was still background noise. Mom, I said, voice calm, do you ever think about how things used to be? She glanced at me, then went back to the tray. Why dwell on the past? I leaned in slightly. Because some of us are still bleeding from it. She didn't answer. I stepped away before I said something I couldn't take back. Out in the backyard, the kids were playing cornhole. I sat alone on the patio steps, watching them. Their laughter, innocent and chaotic, felt like a foreign language. I watched my niece run toward Lauren, arms open. Lauren bent down, scooped her up, spun her around, and I remembered being that age, running toward my mom with a drawing I made, a house, a dog, 3 stick figures. She'd looked at it once, nodded. You forgot to draw Lauren. Back then, I went back and added a 4th stick figure, not because I wanted to, but because I thought it would make her smile. Funny how early we learn to erase ourselves just to be included. Then the back door opened, and Dad stepped out. Julia, he said, like he was surprised I was still around. Still here, I replied. Imagine that. He nodded toward the lawn chairs. Walk with me? I followed. We ended up near the tool shed, out of earshot from the noise. He leaned against the wall and lit a cigar. Still didn't ask if I minded. You've always been intense, he said. Sensitive. I stayed quiet. You could have stayed, he added. Made it easier on yourself. Lauren's not perfect, but at least she didn't make everything a fight. I looked him dead in the eye. She didn't have to. She was already chosen. He exhaled a slow cloud of smoke. You've always had a chip on your shoulder. No, I said. I had my own back when no one else did. That's not a chip. That's survival. He didn't respond. Maybe because he knew I was right. Maybe because he didn't care. Either way, I turned and walked away. Again, I never planned to keep my success a secret. That wasn't the goal. But somewhere between sleeping on a borrowed couch and signing my first $50,000 contract, I realized something. There's power in silence. When you come from a family that only listens to applause when they start it, sometimes the best revenge is letting them wonder what they missed. After I left home, I didn't pack much. I took a duffel bag, my laptop, and a worn-out journal I'd filled with ideas, business plans, and quotes from people I didn't know but wanted to become. The first apartment I lived in had a mildew stain the size of Texas on the ceiling, and my first clients paid me in exposure and Target gift cards. But I kept building. At first, I called every win a fluke, every opportunity luck. That's what happens when you've been told you're hard to love, in small, sharp ways. You start to believe your victories are accidents. I didn't tell my parents when I launched my first LLC. I didn't tell them when I landed a major client in the Bay Area, or when I stopped renting and bought my own 2-bedroom with cash. I didn't even tell them when I was invited to speak at a conference where my name was on a banner bigger than the one from Lauren's wedding. Why? Because every time I thought about calling them, I could hear my mother's voice, clear as if she were next to me. Are you sure you're not getting ahead of yourself? 3 years into building my company, I got an email from someone named Monica Kramer, Executive VP of Strategy at Lark & Co., a legacy brand that had somehow missed the tech wave and wanted in. She'd found my name through a pitch deck I'd quietly ghostwritten for someone else. The subject line of her email was, Julia, are you free to meet? That meeting changed everything. Lark didn't just want help, they wanted to buy in. And I didn't just want a client, I wanted a seat at the table. By the end of Q2, I had negotiated a partial acquisition with controlling interest still in my hands. They got my vision, I got leverage. And not long after that, I got a phone call from Lauren. I almost didn't pick up. Her name lit up on my screen while I was in the middle of reviewing the final legal documents with my lawyer. I hesitated for a second, curious. "Jules?" she said. She only called me that when she wanted something. "Hey," I answered neutral. She laughed awkwardly. "Wow, you sound professional." "What's up, Lauren?" "Well, I was talking to Dad, and he mentioned you've been working in tech or digital or something." I didn't respond right away. Then she added, too casually, "Do you think you could help him with a small investment issue? He's trying to get a line of credit approved, and apparently your name came up in the reference section." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean my name came up?" "Oh," she said, "it's just a formality. He told them you're a co-signer or something. It's no big deal. It's not like he actually used your info." Silence. No big deal. That was the phrase our family specialized in. When Dad took my college fund to help Lauren buy a house, no big deal. When Mom forgot to invite me to Lauren's second baby shower, no big deal. When they changed the family portrait and cropped me out, no big deal. Except now, it was fraud. I hung up and called my lawyer immediately. After 5 minutes of light digging, she confirmed it. My dad had attempted to use my name as a guarantor. Not even subtly. He'd submitted an old version of my business license with his name photoshopped into the file. A sloppy job. But the kind of thing people get away with when they assume no one's watching. I should have been furious. I should have called him and screamed. But I didn't. Instead, I wrote a short email to the bank that received the application. Attached the forged file. Attached the real one. CC'd my lawyer. The application was pulled. Quietly. Without scandal. I didn't tell anyone. Not Lauren, not Mom, not even Kelsey. Because I wasn't looking for drama. I was waiting for leverage. 2 weeks later, Dad emailed me. Subject: Family comes first. "Hey Jules, I think there's been a little mix-up with the loan paperwork. I was under the impression it would be helpful for you as well. Some kind of mutual benefit. You know how these things work. Let's not turn this into a thing. Maybe we can talk it out." He didn't apologize. He didn't ask permission. He just tried to reframe it as a family misunderstanding. I didn't reply. A week later, I got a phone call. This time from Mom. "Julia," she said, voice tight, "your father is very upset. He's trying to build something for the family, and you're making it difficult." I smiled. "Funny, I built something for myself and no one noticed." She went quiet. Then, "This isn't how we solve things." "You're right," I said. "This is how I solve things now." And I hung up. I stood by the window that evening, watching the sun lower over the skyline of the city I now lived in. No lawn chairs, no deviled eggs, no family photos with missing faces. Just glass towers, distant traffic, and a balcony I bought myself. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like clarity. I didn't plan on giving it to them at the reunion. At least, not at first. But then I stood in the hallway again, the one with the sun-bleached wall where my photo used to be. And I listened to them in the next room, laughing like nothing ever broke, like I hadn't been erased on purpose. That's when I knew. It was time. The envelope had been in my bag for months, a thick ivory one with a wax seal. I'd had it printed at the same press that did my company's launch invites. Professional, unmistakable, final. Inside, a notarized letter, a cease and desist, a transcript of the forged loan attempt, and a single photo, me, from the original family portrait, uncropped. Earlier that day, I'd slipped away from the noise to sit alone in my rental car. I'd parked it farther down the street from the house, like I always did. Out of habit. Out of protection. I sat there and stared at the envelope in the glove box for a long time, fingers resting on it. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like accountability in a paper sleeve. And I remembered something Kelsey had said to me once, half joking. "One day, they'll say you were always the strong one, but only after you stop letting them treat you like you're not." By the time I stepped back into the house, the sun had started to dip, washing the rooms in amber. Lauren was at the kitchen island, pouring sangria into wine glasses like a hostess from a magazine shoot. Dad was laughing too loud about something Uncle Dean had said, and Mom was adjusting the picture frames again. Everything looked staged. Everything always did. Julia, my mother said, voice pointedly polite, do you mind helping with the napkins? I held up the envelope. Actually, I brought something. They all turned, like I'd raised a knife. Lauren squinted. What's that? I walked over to the dining table, the same one where I had sat during birthdays as a child, usually at the end, and placed the envelope gently on the polished wood. No fanfare, no announcement, just truth, sealed shut and waiting. What is this? Dad asked, approaching. A few things, I said. Mostly clarity. He opened it. The room changed in an instant. The first thing he saw was the notarized statement and legal letterhead. His face dropped. The air tightened. Lauren leaned over, reading quickly. Wait, what is this? Documentation, I said. Of the forged application. Of the loan you tried to get using my business name. The one that nearly flagged my credit. Mom stepped forward, voice shaky. This isn't how we do things in this family. No, I said. This is how you do things. Quiet manipulation, half-truths, erasure. I'm just finally speaking your language. Dad's jaw clenched. You think this solves anything? No, I said. It just stops it from getting worse. He held the letter like it was burning his fingers. You would drag your own father's name through legal channels? You already dragged mine, I said calmly. I'm just reclaiming it. And then I pointed to the photo, the uncropped one, the only printed proof that I'd once been part of their curated story. I found this in Grandma's attic, I said. You must have forgotten to replace it after you had the new one printed. Lauren looked away. Mom didn't move. I wasn't going to say anything, I continued. But when you decided to steal my name, I remembered how easily you'd already taken my face out of the picture. No one said anything for a long time. Finally, Mom spoke. This isn't about a picture or a loan. You're trying to make us feel guilty. I looked at her, really looked. Her blouse was perfectly pressed. Her pearls sat just right on her collarbone. She was everything a put-together mother should be. And yet, she was trembling. I'm not trying, I said. I just don't carry your denial anymore. I didn't wait for their response. I stepped outside before the silence turned performative again. Kelsey texted me just then. Contract signed. Amazon Press is live. You're trending. BTW. Proud of you. I stood in the golden hour quiet, listening to the muffled chaos I'd left behind. The guilt, the scrambling, the fear of exposure. Let them sit in it. Let them finally feel what I carried for years. 2 weeks passed after the envelope hit the table. I didn't hear from any of them. No calls, no emails, no fake apologies wrapped in just checking in. Just the kind of silence that only comes from a family who finally realizes they've run out of ways to pretend they still have power over you. But they still had one thing. The house. That house wasn't just wood and drywall. It was narrative. It was where every Thanksgiving was staged, every graduation speech rehearsed, every excuse carefully crafted. That house held the illusion together. So I took it. It started with a random voicemail from my mom's neighbor, Ms. Evelyn, the one who always wore pink velour and knew everyone's business by 7 a.m. Hi, Sweet Pea, not trying to stir the pot, but I overheard your dad on the porch. Sounds like they're about to refinance the house. He mentioned something about pulling equity for unexpected legal crap. Just thought you might want to know. I listened to the message twice. Then I opened my laptop. The thing about my parents is they loved control, but they hated paperwork. The mortgage on the house had been refinanced so many times over the years that it was barely hanging on. And now, because of the forged application and the credit hits, they didn't have many options left. But I did. So I made an offer through a shell corporation I'd set up years ago. Quietly, legally, and well above asking price. The property wasn't listed, but money talks when someone's desperate enough. 2 weeks later, the papers were signed. The house was mine. I waited a day before letting them know, It wasn't petty, it was surgical. I mailed them a certified letter, addressed to the house, now technically addressed to me. Inside was a copy of the deed transfer, a letter from my attorney, and one line handwritten by me. Effective immediately, please direct all future correspondence regarding the property to the legal owner. Grace period ends Friday. The call came that same evening. Mom's voice cracked like it hadn't in years. Julia, what did you do? I purchased an asset, I said. One that was vulnerable. That's what I do now, remember? You can't be serious. I'm not in the business of jokes. She went quiet, then tried again. This house has history. I smiled into the receiver. Yes. And now it has new terms. Later that week, I drove by. I didn't go in. I just parked across the street. The porch light was on. The front steps still needed paint. My dad's truck was in the driveway, but it looked smaller than I remembered. The whole house did. I didn't feel triumph. I felt done. When people talk about reclaiming power, they imagine it's fireworks or headlines. But for me, it was this. Sitting behind tinted windows, watching a house I used to be invisible in, and knowing I didn't need to be seen there ever again. It started with a headline. Rising tech CEO accused of stealing startup IP from family. I read it on a Tuesday morning while stirring almond milk into my coffee. Kelsey sent it with one word. Intentional? I knew before I clicked. Knew exactly who'd fed the story. It was a small site, nothing major. But it was loud enough, clickbaity enough, and most importantly, local enough to get picked up by the kind of people who love whispers that sound like truth. The article cited anonymous family sources, claiming that my original business model was based on an idea my father had shared over dinner years ago, that I'd refused to credit him, that I'd cut ties with family after exploiting their support. They even mentioned the house. After gaining success, sources say Julia purchased her family's longtime home in an act of emotional retaliation. No facts, no quotes, just a weapon disguised as a story. Kelsey called. We could send a takedown. Honestly, it's not credible enough to harm you professionally. I didn't answer right away. My hand was clenched around the mug handle so tightly I thought it might crack. Jules, she said gently, what do you want to do? I let out a slow breath. Nothing yet. The next day, I got a call from Nate, my old high school friend turned semi-successful podcast host. He sounded apologetic before he even said hello. Hey, look, someone from your family reached out. Said you might want to tell your side before the next episode drops. What episode? He hesitated. Your sister emailed us a few weeks back. Said your story would make a great cautionary tale about ambition and burned bridges. She called it a family perspective. I let that sink in. Lauren's doing press rounds now? I asked. Jules, you know I'd never air something without reaching out. I just thought you should hear it from me. Thanks for the heads up, I said quietly. Then I hung up. That evening, I sat on my balcony and watched the city lights shimmer below. This was the part no one warned you about. When the family that claimed to love you would rather tarnish your name than face their own reflection. And still, I didn't want revenge. Not this time. I wanted to end it. 2 days later, I booked a single interview with a mid-tier business podcast run by a former journalist named Eliza who prided herself on clean reporting. Not flashy, not tabloidy, just honest. I gave her everything, not just the legal papers, the house deed, the email trail from my dad's failed application, but the audio, the one I hadn't told anyone I had. It was recorded at the reunion, during a conversation in the hallway, when my dad tried to gaslight me into thinking the forged loan had been miscommunication. He didn't know I'd had my phone recording in my pocket. I didn't plan it. But maybe, on some level, I did. The episode dropped a week later. It wasn't dramatic. No scorched earth. Just facts. It told the story of a woman who came from a family that mistook her silence for weakness, her ambition for betrayal. A woman who built a business without a safety net, and when she succeeded, the people who ignored her tried to rewrite the story. The clip with my father's voice played for exactly 17 seconds. "It's not like you'll actually sue us, Julia. We're family. This is just paperwork." Then the host's voice cut in. "But what happens when family becomes the threat?" The internet didn't explode. It didn't have to, because people listened. People reposted with comments like, "She didn't burn the bridge. She just stopped building it alone." This is why generational cycles need to be broken. The real villain is always the one who taught you silence. And most importantly, sponsors stayed. Clients called to say they respected how I handled it. Lauren never responded publicly. But a week later, I got an email from an unfamiliar address. Just 2 lines. "You didn't have to air it like that. But I guess you never owed us anything?" No signature. I didn't reply. Instead, I booked a single speaking event. Not a flashy TED Talk. Just a panel discussion for young women in tech. First-gen founders, especially those with no family backing. On stage, when someone asked what my biggest lesson was, I said that it's okay to grieve a version of family that never existed. I used to think closure was something someone else gave you, a conversation, an apology, a moment that made it all make sense. Turns out, closure is what you decide to walk away from, without needing anyone to watch you leave. 2 months passed after the podcast dropped. No more messages from my parents. No more attempts from Lauren. It wasn't silence this time, it was absence, and it didn't ache like I thought it would. One morning, I woke up to sunlight pouring across my bed, my phone vibrating with a new email. It wasn't from a client. It wasn't media or lawyers. It was from Chloe. She was 19, a first-generation college student, and one of the recipients of a tech scholarship my company had quietly funded the year before. Her message was simple. "I didn't think people like me had a place in tech. Then I read your story. If you ever have internships, I'd do anything to learn from you." I reread it 3 times. Then I replied with one sentence. "When can you start?" 2 weeks later, Chloe walked into our office. She wore sneakers, an oversized hoodie, and a backpack weighed down with too much hope. I saw myself in her, not in the details, but in the silence she carried. The kind of silence you only wear when you've been told your voice is optional. She worked hard, listened more than she spoke, asked questions like she was building a future from every answer. One afternoon, while we were grabbing coffee in the break room, she asked me something no one had asked in years. "Do you ever miss them?" she said gently. It caught me off guard. I didn't pretend not to know who she meant. I just took a breath, leaned against the counter, and told the truth. "I miss the version of them I thought they could be," I said. "But I don't miss trying to be someone small enough to make them comfortable." The next week, I got a letter. An actual letter. Handwritten. From my niece, Lauren's daughter, Ava. "Hi, Aunt Jules. I know we haven't talked much, but I heard you started something really cool. I'm learning to code at school, and I was wondering if, maybe someday, I could visit your office. Mom doesn't like me asking, but I wanted to write anyway. I hope that's okay." I sat there for a long time with that letter in my hands. Not crying, not angry, just moved. Because Ava had no idea what she was asking for, but she asked anyway. That's courage. A month later, she visited. I didn't tell Lauren. I cleared it with Ava's dad. He was divorced from Lauren years ago and more neutral. He just said, "Honestly, I think it'd be good for her." Ava arrived wearing a bright yellow jacket and wide eyes. "This is where you work?" she asked, staring at the open office layout with glass walls and clean design. "Yep," I said. "All of it." She walked past a framed article on the wall, the Forbes feature, next to a small print of the company's founding mission: to build what we once needed. She paused in front of it. "That's really cool." I smiled. "Thanks." Then she looked up at me and asked, "Was it hard?" I thought about the hallway with the missing photo, the taste of dry toast the morning I left for college, the voice of my father saying, "You're sensitive," the way Lauren's tone sharpened whenever I succeeded. And then I thought about Ava, standing there asking, not accusing, not doubting, just asking. Yeah, I said. It was hard, but not harder than staying where I wasn't seen. She nodded like she understood more than a 12-year-old should. I think I want to work here someday, she whispered. And just like that, I felt something shift, not closure, not redemption, continuity. That night, I walked home. Alone. No chauffeur, no car service, no noise. I passed a window of a little corner restaurant and saw a family laughing inside. 3 generations. The oldest woman wore pearls. The daughter cut her meat like she was used to pretending everything was fine. The granddaughter stared out the window like she wanted to be anywhere else. I saw myself in all 3. I kept walking. Sometimes people ask me if I ever reconciled with my family. I tell them the truth. No, but I made peace with the girl they tried to erase. And that's more than enough. 3 years later, Ava sits beside Chloe in the same office. Chloe's now head of product development. Ava's an intern. They laugh over boba, code bugs, and bad UX decisions. No one asks about Julia's family. No one has to. Because Julia's name is on the building. Not because she needed recognition, but because she learned how to stop waiting for permission to exist. In the end, I didn't get the apology I once cried for. But I got something better. Peace. Earned, not given. If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, let me say this. You don't need their permission to be whole. You don't need their praise to become powerful. Sometimes the real strength isn't in proving them wrong. It's in building a life where their opinion no longer defines you. What about you? Have you ever had to walk away to protect your peace? Or maybe you're still deciding if you're allowed to. Either way, you're not alone. Let me know where you're watching from, or what part of this story spoke to you. If you didn't like the video, I'd still love to know why. Feedback makes us better storytellers. And hey, if this story reached you, if even one sentence felt like it was yours, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us for more true stories that might just feel a little too familiar. Thanks for watching.